I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the Fox one.
Yeah, it looks like a video is running.
Probably unrelated.
Could just be their user screen.
Okay. Well, anyways, call to order the Detention Facilities Oversight Board meeting for May 15th, 2023. I'll start with a roll call. If you can, please put your camera on when you say you're here. I know Pam's driving. So I think that'll be fine, but I, Janice Mensa, am here. We'll start with Pam. Secretary Pam Walker.
I'm here.
Thanks. Barb Baker.
Here.
James Dom. Vice Chair Reverend Darrell Gray.
Present.
Tom Lawson.
Present.
Ornitha Lewis Walls. I think you were on mute, Ornitha.
Okay, I'm here.
Thanks. Mike Milton is not here. Hillary Stuckey.
Here.
Okay, I needed Pam. So, okay, so we have 8 people here. I'm gonna go ahead and read the agenda. There's gonna be one slight change. We're gonna move the orientation up because James has a hard stop at 5:45. So, first, we have the welcome and call to order, then the approval of minutes from 4/17. Then we have the DFLB orientation of procedural justice and investigative best practices. Next, we have Nicole Barton from the mayor's office here. Next is an update on DOC training. Then an agenda item I proposed, which I'll explain later, an anti-retaliation policy. Then we have new business, public comment, and adjournment. Are there any late additions to the agenda? Okay.
I'm sorry, Chair, yes. And maybe it'd be under, maybe I can wait, and it could come under new business. Do I have to specify what it is now, or?
You don't have to.
Okay, I'd like to wait because I think that it would depend on the meeting.
Okay.
Whether or not I want to bring it up, if that's okay.
Sure. Could you give me like
I'll text you. It's not controversial or anything like
okay. Could you give me like how much time I should leave for it so I can keep track?
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay.
Easy. Yeah, 5 minutes.
All right. So no other additions to the agenda. The approval of the minutes from 4/17. Did anyone not have a chance to review them?
I would like to move the approval of the minutes of the 17th with any necessary, I guess I'll be more specific. I'd like to move the approval of the minutes of April 17th, 2023 with any necessary corrections.
Hey, Barb Burkett, do you want to go through your corrections? I misplaced the copy of corrections.
Oh,
4/17.
sure. Let me pull them up. I don't have them right in front of me. But I'm pulling them up and I'm trying not to waste any time here.
They were just minor.
Yeah, sometimes they are just for clarity or they were not changing any substance. I'm just looking for, let's see, 4/17.
Matt, are you host?
Yes.
Do you mind turning off Fox Rocks 211 exclamation points video? Oh, Well, maybe they did it. Okay, they
I
did.
just did it. No, I did.
Oh, okay, great. If that Fox person wants to come back on for public comment, that's fine. I just, the
Yeah.
EV play was distracting.
I don't know that I had the red line. My 417, were just more, on the way of, grammar. I think that I had a change to. I'm not looking at comments, just I think that, I think on point 4, it looks like Rhonda J from the public expressed her concern as to why all the obstruction and stonewalling was necessary. I think I thought there were a couple missing words. I think that's it. I'm sorry that I didn't print those and put them in front of me, but there's nothing of material substance. They were just for clarity and clerical.
Okay,
But just inserting were necessary in the description of the public comments.
Yeah, I thought there were 2 missing words in the section 4. And again, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
with that in mind, does anyone want to take some time after this meeting to look those over, or can we go forward with Reverend Gray's motion about passing those minutes, approving those minutes? Okay,
As long
so
as we have the gist, I'm comfortable with seconding Reverend Gray's motion.
okay, sounds like we have a second. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Let's see. Barb Baker,
Yes.
love the hair, Barb. James Dom.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reverend Gray. I think you were on mute if you said something.
Yes.
Tom Lawson,
Aye.
Ornitha Lewis Walls,
Aye.
Mike Milton is not here, Hillary Stuckey,
Aye.
and Secretary Pam Walker.
Aye.
Sounds good. That's 7 yeses. It passes. So the next item on the agenda is, okay, the DFOB orientation of procedural justice and investigative best practices. Matt, who is doing this?
I am. Go ahead,
Okay.
Barb.
Chairman, you can come back to this, but if you wanted to get the April 27th minutes, you don't have to do it now. I just wanted to point out that we
Okay.
didn't approve them.
Yeah, let's do that now. Is there anyone who hasn't had a chance to look at the April 27th minutes?
I don't know if I made a few edits that I shared with the commissioner, and one was it under the motion. I said to have confidential or privileged communications with legal counsel pursuant to section 610.0211, because I thought it was a little bit more clear. That's not a material change. As long as you have that section, it's fine. And on paragraph 5, I changed that to member Dom announced he had to leave the meeting, so it didn't look like there was a stop to the meeting. And that was basically it. Like I said, just little things for clarity.
Sounds good. Thanks for taking those notes, by the way.
You're welcome.
Based upon those clarifications and corrections, Chair, I move that we adopt the minutes of April the 27th,
So,
2023.
anyone second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, James. We'll take another roll call vote. to approve the April 27th minutes. Barb Baker,
Yes.
James Dom.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reverend Gray,
Yes.
Tom Lawson,
Aye.
Ornitha Lewis Walls,
Yes.
Mike Milton is not here, Hillary Stuckey,
Yes.
and Secretary Pam Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, so Matt, I will pass it off to you for this orientation.
Okay, thanks. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see? Oh, wait, here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yepper.
Okay, so just for a way of, for the record and not in any way to boast, but this is training that I've developed when I was in community outreach for the FBI. I developed a procedural justice and police legitimacy course that I gave to basically police sergeants and management for about 5 or 6 years to all departments all around St. Louis. It was post-certified because just based on my experience as an FBI agent, I just thought this is kind of the key. This is where everything starts. This is where stuff breaks down. And this is kind of the core values of how we run our office at Civilian Oversight. All my employees, I've bored them ad nauseum with these principles. Because I just think this is just kind of the core of what's happening. And I should also just note for the record, within the FBI, I was adjunct faculty in investigative training in organized crime, civil rights, crisis management, and counterterrorism. Just so for the orientation on best investigative practices. So right after Michael Brown was killed, we had a kind of a law enforcement meeting with many members of the NAACP and clergy and community activists. I mean, this is the 3 or 4 days later, because law enforcement is kind of in a state of confusion as to what was happening, how we could fix or solve this. And one of the reverends in this meeting, and it was very transformative, said to me, Matt, you have to understand that it's not whether or not the officer acted justly or was in the right. That isn't the issue. The issue is that we don't trust law enforcement to tell us that. We have no trust that what you're doing, we have no reason to believe you. And if once you don't have that belief, everything breaks down. And so when you start searching about or looking for ways, how do you rebuild that trust? I mean, it almost sounds like you're stating the obvious in a lot of this training, but it really is a commitment to the core values of procedural justice that build that trust. And so studies, there's all sorts of studies and background to show. So here are the 4 that procedural justice and police legitimacy are what required for a police department to be effective. And that if citizens have a high degree of trust and confidence in their police department, that they are going to do the right thing, that they're going to treat people fairly, they're more likely to comply, they're more likely to cooperate. It makes investigations go better, and it makes everyone safer. So it's just a very fundamental principle. And I mean, and it doesn't just apply to police enforcement. There's all sorts of, it applies across all types of investigations, or even non-law enforcement investigations, these core principles. So here are the 4 core principles. See if I can get it. And the 4 cornerstones of procedural justice are: 1, our voice. Did citizens have a chance to explain themselves? Did they feel like they were heard? 2 is fairness. Did they perceive that objective factors were used and it wasn't impermissible biases or statuses that led to that car stop or interaction or arrest? Were they treated with dignity and respect? And did they perceive that the police cared about their well-being? That their well-being was taken into account? And just the mere fact that the existence of oversight here is some people, when they talk about procedural justice, will talk about fairness also includes impartiality, and that the fairness includes that we apply those factors to ourselves. And so law enforcement or is holding themselves to the same standards they're holding everybody else, and that there's transparency in how they do that. And oversight's a big part of that, is building that trust and fairness. That if, you know, and part of the philosophy behind oversight is if I as a citizen believe I have a fair and unbiased appeal court, or I can appeal to the oversight board and say, hey, this was wrong, it makes it more likely that they'll comply in the instant moment, knowing that I have an avenue of appeal. I know I can make this right, or there's a way to make this right, or I have somebody I can trust that we can appeal to rectify this. So one of the things, so right after Ferguson, I was made full-time community outreach for the FBI and just kind of try to put these principles into practice. And so with regards to voice, I just started listening to people. And I should make as an aside, probably, if not the number one complaint, one of the top complaints we receive, one of the factors is almost always, they didn't listen to me. They didn't hear me. They didn't give me a chance to explain. Like, so just from when I talk to police officers, I often tell them, you know, you can save yourself a lot of trouble if you just make people feel that they've been heard. If you actually give them a chance to listen on the front end, you can save yourself trouble on the back end. And so I gave surveys. I went into Northwest High School, Jennings High School, Riverview Gardens, and it would survey the students. Tell me what you think of the police. What would you like the police to do different, better? You want them to leave you alone? You want them to go away? What? Just tell me. I try to keep it as open-ended as possible. And they were all, and at the time I'm teaching these courses to police officers, I said, I will share your results with your permission with them. And they were all excited to give their opinions. And I asked them to rate police officers on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being no trust at all, 4 being I could trust them completely. And I was surprised. I was expecting, honestly, a 1, possibly a 2 from students, which were majority African-American students, teenagers, who've not had always the best interactions with police officers. And if you ask law enforcement, and which I have, they would typically say it's a 1. Everyone hates us. No one likes us. They're just, and I was surprised at first that it was usually 3 or higher. That typically the kind of the tenor of the responses we got from the kids were, we want police to do their job. We want them to help us address the gun violence and drugs that plague our neighborhood. And the caveat was, please stop harassing us. And so I thought that was just a tremendous opportunity for law enforcement to go, look, the reason police are doing many of these things is because they're trying to stop the gun violence and drugs. And so I think if we all have the same goals and we're not understanding how these goals we're going at them differently, I think there's opportunity there for agreement to see that we want the same thing. We want safe communities free from gun violence, free from the ravages of drug addiction. And so I think that was just an important point for me to listen. Oh, okay. If people have been heard, it could go a long way to understanding and bridging that gap. The second one, impartiality and fairness, is self-explanatory. But I think it's important for officers, what I emphasize to them is that explain why you're doing it. For a lot of times for officers, a car stop or a search or a pat down just becomes so routine, something they do every day. But it's not often, for many people, it's the first and only time that it's happened to them. And so I encourage officers to explain as much as possible, over explain what you're doing, why you're doing it. Explain that the car stop is because, and hopefully it is because, this is a high traffic accident area, a high traffic fatality area, and we're trying to keep all the drivers safe. Studies have shown that officers who do that, who commit to that, there's a much higher percentage of people who receive tickets. If it's explained to them that it's for their safety and shown stats, they're more likely to pay, less likely to contest, because it's a fair and unbiased neutral reason. You know, you got to give respect to get respect. And so it's so important to treat people with respect and dignity, just as a common courtesy. And it just makes your job so much easier. I'll never forget, I was helping a couple city police officers make an arrest. They had a person in custody who was refusing to identify themselves, had no identifying papers on them, and could only be held for 24 hours before they had to release them. Because they couldn't identify, and they were assuming there must be some reason they don't have any identification papers and wouldn't tell who they were. So they came to the FBI, who at the time was the only place you could do digital fingerprints. So I sat the arrestee down. I explained the process. I explained what we were going to do, that we were going to send off the fingerprints, and then we fingerprinted him, sent him off. It took a couple hours. This is 10, 15 or so years ago. And it came back, he was wanted for first-degree homicide out of New Jersey. And so as I'm putting the handcuffs on him and arresting him, he actually apologized to me. He said, I'm sorry I lied to you and I didn't cooperate, but because you treated me so nicely. And there was, I just found that, but there was a level of respect that if you treat people with respect, it can go a long way to how things are done. I actually was sued once as an FBI agent, but the person suing me actually wrote me a personal letter apologizing for suing me and said, my lawyer made me include you because you're the FBI. But you treated me so nicely in the interview and with such respect. I'm really sad. I didn't want to do it, but he made me do it. So of course I used that to get out of the lawsuit. But it just over and over, it has shown that you can do the job with respect. You can do it. And that's just an important part of building police legitimacy and procedural justice. And then should citizens perceive that the police care? And that kind of is linked in with the objective factors. But if the officers explain that they're doing it for their own safety, for other people's safety, it's helpful. It just goes a long way of trying to understand how the job is and how things are going. Now, what's important to note, this isn't a quick fix. This is something that takes time. It's every interaction a police officer has is either building legitimacy or taking it away. They're either giving someone a positive impression of how an officer conducts themselves or a negative impression. It emphasizes communication. Patrick Skinner is a police officer at a couple different locations that's written extensively about this, and he tells officers go slow. It takes a minute, but it's worth the time and investment on the front end. Usually when I talk to the academy students at the police academy or the cadets, kind of the three things I tell them is we have a lot more in common than we realize. We have the same goals. You know, if you go back to the beginning of policing, you know, with Robert Peel, he talks about how people are the police and police are the people. We all have the same goal of safety. And if you can start from a assumption that we have that same goal, that same big goal, can help. Not every interaction has to be as antagonistic. Even in the event that you're still having to effective arrest or something like that. I tell them to take their time, to go slow. It's worth the investment to take those extra few minutes to listen, to take those few extra minutes to explain, and you can avoid so many problems that way. So that's just kind of the four cornerstones of procedural justice, and you can go, you know, and if you look at Ferguson, a lot of what happened is when I talk to people about Ferguson, I say you just can't read the DOJ report on the actual incident. You actually also have to read the Ferguson Commission report that talks about the history. And you also have to read the DOJ report on the history of the Ferguson Police Department and understand there was no police legitimacy. When you look at all the violations that department had in the community, you can understand why there was a lack of legitimacy, there was a lack of trust, and that makes for an explosive environment that any spark can set off. And so you have to understand kind of the big picture. You just can't take it incident by incident and understand people's history. So as this applies to procedural justice, it actually, just one more example I'll use. I know you got to go, James. Is when I first started off in counterterrorism, I also was assigned to civil rights. And one of the things that happened when Iraq was invaded is a couple of guys thought they'd try to burn down the mosque in retaliation. Of course, they didn't get it right. They mistook the Hindu temple for the mosque, and they tried to burn the Hindu temple down. They weren't the brightest guys. Didn't work. So they tried a couple times, and we ended up arresting them. And it's kind of shows that it's better to be lucky than good. But the fact that we arrested people, 2 white males, for attempting to burn down a Hindu temple showed not only the people in the temple, but in the mosque down the street, that we were serious about protecting their right to worship and protecting their houses of worship. And so, you know, when I was doing counterterrorism work, I had an accidentally built in a lot of credibility of, hey, this can work. Matt can be trusted. He's actually kind of cares about our well-being. When I say I care, it had been demonstrated. So procedural justice, but it's also important as we conduct oversight investigations, it's going to be important that this is how we treat police officers as well. So the more I understood procedural justice and police legitimacy, the more it was important to me that I conducted my investigations in a very just manner. And so it wasn't, let's see if I can go forward here. So it's not about just any one single outcome or case. There's no one case worth destroying your credibility for, or cutting a corner, or our job is to collect the facts as accurately and thoroughly as possible, and then not worry about what that actually amounts to. And often in civil rights type cases, what actually happened is not as much in doubt, especially with the advent of body cameras. It's more of an interpretation of, we're arguing about whether or not it fits the legal criteria for a violation, but the actual events are rarely, there's a very limited areas of dispute. And so it's important. So when I would interview people, that went from trying to get a confession to, by the end of my career, I just want to get your story, whether I believe it's true or not. I want to make sure that you were heard completely and accurately as possible, that I hear your version of the events. And then I can come back at a later point in time if I find conflicting evidence or I have questions. But it wasn't a matter of trying to force you into my version of the events. It was more important that people felt that they were fairly heard and treated with respect. If they have the right to an attorney, they're welcome to have their attorney. There is going to be no tricks about interviewing them without their attorney. If it was, and so that is a big part of oversight, is making sure that they're conducted fairly and thoroughly and with respect, especially in these type of internal affair cases. And so I've sent our investigators to internal affairs trainings to get the best procedures and practices. And they've kind of underscored this philosophy of it has to be thorough, has to be fair, has to, and that's making sure we have all the physical evidence, the video evidence, but that we also talk to everybody and make sure we get their story as completely as possible. And that it's recorded in a way that's transparent, that we're not misstating anybody's statements, that we're relaying them accurately. So that's really kind of just the cornerstone of procedural justice, is kind of those 4 pillars, applying them in every situation. It's hard to predict everything that can be done, but you can always listen, you can always show respect, you can always care, and you can always be fair. Like it doesn't, they apply across the board in all types of investigations. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. Does anybody have any questions? And I can give a lot more, if anybody's interested, I can give a lot of resources for further investigation or review into that. But that's just kind of an overview, orientation, let's say, of procedural justice and best investigative practices.
Thanks, Matt. I want to open it up to the board, but James, if you could go first with any questions since you got to leave soon.
No real questions. Just wanted to thank Matt again for the presentation. I thought it was very, very illuminating and very good information to have.
Okay. I'm going to open up to the rest of the board. James, if this, when it comes to time for you to hop off, feel free.
Okay, thanks.
Chair, I just want to say I agree with James. I thought it was extremely helpful, very concise. I think that the way that the commissioner explained it allows for us to get a clear sense of this particular subject matter. And I think that very well presented, Matt. Great job. Extremely helpful.
Thank you.
Tom?
But we expect no less from you, though.
Matt, is there any way you could kind of present this to the superintendent of the detention facility?
I can offer it.
Maybe they can learn a few things about respect.
Thomas.
I'll be glad to offer it to them.
These opinions do not respect the Detention Oversight Board. Okay.
Only a couple of us.
Thanks, Tom. Other members? Okay, I had a couple of questions. Matt, can you speak to, so you had developed this training far before the DFOB was started. So, oh, James is leaving. Are you the question? Are you? Okay, I think he was leaving. You had developed this training far before the DFOB was started. Could you comment on why we're getting this training now, I guess? Or like what brought you to giving us this training now?
Just because it's part of the orientation in the new ordinance. That's one of the topics that was covered.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh,
I didn't know.
And I don't think it was one of the topics in the old ordinance or the older one, but yeah, I mean, that's just the main reason.
Okay, thank you. It sounds like it offered some helpful like best practices for reducing the harm that is done when we attempt, well, specifically, I guess in this case, when CJC staff, I guess, attempts procedural justice, or if we were doing an investigation, when we would do procedural justice. I'd agree with Tom that it would be helpful if corrections officers would get this training. I think it would be helpful in terms of like small interactions, like not a formal investigation, but small interactions they have with people detained in terms of like anything that would lead to a use of force or punishment, or also the whole process of IRRs or internal complaints and handling those. I think James had talked before about the process that they have for filing an internal complaint relies on a lot of trust, because I think it's like a paper system and you have to give it to a corrections officer to file it, which is like presents some issues. And then just like, I guess a general thought on this is that I think I would have a hard time applying these practices in terms of, I could see how it would be very helpful for the people reporting, like detained people reporting incidences of injustice, to feel like they have a voice and that things are fair, that they're respected, and that people care for them. But I kind of just kept thinking that they don't really have a voice in terms of the last tour I had where I was made to leave by CJC staff. It was because a detained person was exercising their voice by trying to tell me the injustices that were happening. And yeah, I feel like our practical present situation is very far from these best practices. But I think if we were to move towards procedural justice, it would require a lot of work on CJC staff side, and communication between the commissioner and, well, Commissioner Clemens Abdullah and the board, and possibly the intervention of the mayor's office in the city, which I hope we can talk about in, I believe, our next agenda item. Yes, which is speaking with Nicole Barton. But I just want to leave it open. Did any other board members have any other comments or questions on this? I wish that the commissioner was here for this meeting, that she could have made this one, because then we could have gotten it all at the same one. But anyways, other comments? Matt.
Yeah, just a couple more comments. Is the literature and the studies in the corrections field with these principles aren't as developed, but it's starting. People are starting to make that transfer into, hey, this works in the corrections arena as well with the studies and stuff. And I'll guarantee you there are COs in the jail already practicing these, because I've interviewed them in different cases where just, out of instinct or habit, know that this works well for you in authority position. And so hopefully it wouldn't be that hard to identify them and use them as examples. Like this is, yeah, it's theoretical, but it's also very practical. Here, look, everyone has people they respect in their lives, and it's typically because those values are present.
That's a good point. When we start a real investigation, it would be good to like kind of use these 4 things as a basis of assessing the state of procedural justice currently. Any other comments? Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next agenda item. Okay, we have Nicole Barton here, the Executive Director of, I just have the initials here and I forgot the full title. So Nicole, I will let you tell us what CJCC means and introduce yourself, and you have the floor. Thanks for
Chair.
coming.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Nicole Barton, and I am the Executive Director for the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, which is a long title for CJCC. So I work for Mayor Jones, and my position is, so I work with every appointed and elected official in our city that has anything to do with the criminal justice system. So our council is made up of our police chief, Chief Tracy, Circuit Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, the Sheriff's Department, probation and parole, our circuit court judges, our municipal court judges, the mayor's office, and I feel like I'm leaving someone out. But so I work closely with each entity to identify gaps, to meet, oh, and I'm sorry, the director of CJC, Commissioner Clemens Abdullah, forgot to mention her as well. And one of the jobs that I do is meet with each agency, and we look at identifying gaps in our criminal justice system and how we can work together better to identify those gaps. We also have some subcommittees, which are our alternatives to incarceration, who Mike Milton sits on that committee as well. And we have the information sharing and governance committee that meets as well. And so I was the first executive director for the Civilian Oversight Board back in 2015. So we worked to get the Civilian Oversight Board of the Police Department up and running, wrote all the policies and procedures for that department, worked with Internal Affairs Division, developed our form, our complaint form, and the means and processes in which we did our work. So, and I'm happy to be here and to help. So thank you all for writing your letter to our office about your concerns. And some of those concerns we were sort of already working on, but thank you for making us aware of all of your concerns. I think that helps as we're working through the process. And Matt has been great as well. And Matt, your presentation was great too. I didn't say that at the beginning, but we are working to identify all of the issues and concerns that you all have presented forward, and trying to make sure that we have a path forward to make sure that you all are able to do what the ordinance created you to do, right? And so one of the first things that we want to make sure that we are addressing is that you can have access to get into the jail. And so Matt and staff went to the training that CJC has developed, and we want to make sure, and hopefully you guys will be able to talk about that a little bit more, about what that training looked like and what we want to do. The idea here is to take what's important to this group and pare that down, because one of my concerns was that you all are volunteers and everybody can't take off 2 days to go through this training. So we wanted to make it accessible for you all to be able to go through the training at your schedule. One of the things that we did with Civilian Oversight of the Police was we did a 4-hour training once a week, every week for 12 weeks. It was very intense for police oversight. But that's how we got all of the training done, so that we could receive complaints, review those complaints, and make recommendations, because we could not vote on the outcomes until after the training was done. And so I think, you guys are on your way doing that, as you had this orientation on procedural justice and best practices this evening. And, the other trainings that you all will need, I would suggest that, probably every week or every other week, depending on your schedules, in the evening, that you could finish out the training, but the first one we wanted you all to be able to get was the CJC training. So what we're gonna do, and Matt is meeting with the director over there too, so that we can sort of talk about how this gear this training for you all specifically. So you all don't need to go to trainings that necessarily a CO has to go through, if you will. It should be specific to you all being able to gain access. And so what we're doing in the meantime, while we're building what this would look like out for you all on your time, is hopefully agreeing to let you all go to the jail with staff, with Matt or any of his staff that have been through the training in the meantime, while we're working on you all being able to get this same training. But we're hoping to pare that down so it's not like a 16-hour training, but pick the most important parts, which I think Matt has probably a great idea of what those most important parts are, since they've attended that training. The other, some of the other things that we want to try to do as quickly as possible is make sure, one of the first things that we did with the jail, with the police oversight, was develop that form, the complaint form. So that's probably a top priority for you all to be able to get that form developed and finished so that you can have a way of getting complaints. I actually wanted to put this on your radar as well. As I was meeting with the public defender's office recently, we had a discussion as I was helping identify some gaps over there. And we talked about when the public defenders are meeting with their clients at the jail, and if they have encountered some use of force or whatever issues that they may be encountering at the jail, that we can, as soon as you guys have that form available, we can make sure that the public defenders have those forms as well. So if they are meeting with their clients and they say, hey, this happened to me, that they can have those forms available for their clients. I think that each one of the reentry officers and pretrial people should have those forms as well, and that we can get together and come up with a process for you all to get those forms. We did that, Miss Louisa Lyles, who I think is on the call, we did that with the police oversight as well. So if someone was detained, we know that they couldn't get to us to fill out the complaint form, that we had a process worked out with the dorm reps in each one of the dorms, that they had the forms so that they could give it to anyone who says, hey, I encountered this action with a police officer, and we had a way to be able to get those forms back to us as quickly as possible. And then we would go in and we would interview that person so that we could start that process. And so I think something similar like that will work for you all too. I don't think it's a hard thing to do. And the other thing that would be on top as a priority is for you all to work on the process, right? The process and procedure. And that would have to be done with Jennifer and with the city councilor's office, because one, we want to make sure that the processes will work, and we want to make sure that there's nothing, that we're following legal practices, right? We don't want anyone to sue us because we want, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Nicole. Could you just repeat that sentence?
To develop the processes, or
yeah.
to, yeah. So
Develop the
you,
process.
yeah. So when I'm saying processes, I'm not talking about the processes that you all will need internally for your board specifically. I'm talking about the process of what this looks like, right? So you're developing this form, what does this look like? When someone fills out the form, how will the process take place? How will a CO get that to you all? Or how will, if someone mails it to you, how do you share that back with CJC? How does it look, when you all need to go in and do the investigation, or talk to the person who is filing the complaints? How are you getting the file material, as in the evidence? If there's cameras available, if there's witnesses, what does this look like? The actual process itself, right? Because that's going to be important for you all in order to have this, relationship with CJC. Make sure that there's a process followed, that complaints are getting to you all in a timely manner, but 48 hours or whatever the ordinance says, and to make sure that you all are getting the evidence that goes along with those complaints. So, it would be great for you all to work with the director for CJC in that process, as well as, like I said, the city councilor's office, because you want them to have the check and balance, right? To make sure that we're not implementing anything that could get us sued later, because we want you all to be effective and efficient and get everything done that the ordinance has called for you all to be able to do. And that's exactly what we did with police oversight. And I got sued. So I'll just say this, so I'll put this out here as because it's public information. The first, Ms. Lyles can tell you, the very first complaint we got, the FLP sued us. And so we ended up in court, which
Sorry,
was probably
FOP? What's
the
FOP?
union, the police union. I'm sorry. We speak in so many acronyms and I forget as I'm talking sometimes. So thank you. And feel free to ask any questions, as I know I'm going kind of fast here. But we got sued. We went to Civil Service Commission, got some language changes, and we went back to court and we won. We were sued again later. We ended up getting subpoena power, a year and a half, I guess it was a year and a half into the functioning of the oversight board, but we won both times. And so sometimes you have to use that power in order to, push things along. I think that you guys are on the right track with getting everything, that you need to get done. Now you're on track with the training. And I just want to say too, the training that you all have started today, that's separate from the CJC training, right? So I don't want you all to think that CJC is telling you how you have to do your training. The ordinance says that, right? The ordinance says you need these specific trainings. The CJC training in and of itself is this training that Matt and staff went to last week. And that's in order for you all to be able to gain access to the jail, if that makes sense. So I wanted to be clear on that. That's not something that you have to consult with CJC on the rest of your training. That's something that you and your board and probably the city councilor's office are working on together, because city councilor's office will provide some of that training, sunshine law and constitutional law and whatever else is in that bucket that the city councilor's office will help provide. And I'm also happy to help with trainings, additional trainings. And I sit on a national board as well. And so we're all pretty connected. As I'm not a subject matter expert in jail oversight, but I have colleagues that are, and that have been in this industry for a long time. And I'm happy to connect. I'm happy to help. They have procedures in place. And I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. When I was the director for Civilian Oversight Board of Police, we didn't create everything from scratch. We learned from our partners across the country that already were doing the work. And I had many discussions beforehand, what's working, what's not working, what are some pitfalls that we should be aware of so we don't fall into the same ones, right? And so, I think that those are connections that you all should have too, so that you're not reinventing the wheel, if that makes sense. I feel like it was something else. Do you have my letter, Janice? Do you have my letter there? I can pull it up. I just want to make sure I'm hitting all the points.
Just trying to pull it up, but
I got it. Okay,
Yeah.
so working on the CJC training. I remember additional training is outlined, which you guys started today. Prepare and adopt rules and policies, consultation. Okay. Yeah, so I think we hit most of them. I'm happy to take questions too, if you all have like additional questions or anything else you can think of.
I just want to clarify. I'm sorry, Reverend Gray. I did see your hand. Just real quick, I just want to clarify for the record, since this is a public meeting and we're recorded, we started the orientation process from our first meeting. This is not something we started today.
Okay.
So this part we did today, but we've been at and covered various parts throughout our meetings. I just want to
Okay, great.
clarify that for the record.
Thanks, Matt, because I didn't know what trainings you all have already started or not. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you, Nicole. I also wanted to say, I probably should have said this before Nicole spoke, that Nicole is here on behalf of the mayor, because the mayor couldn't make it. So we invited the mayor couldn't make it. We also invited Commissioner Clemens Abdullah, and she couldn't make it. I do hope to see both the commissioner and the mayor at a future meeting, if not at the same time, then at separate times, whatever we can manage. Because I think it's important that the mayor answers some of the questions that we have directly, and that the commissioner answers some of those questions as well. I do have several concerns, but I do want to pass it over to the board. Before I speak, I see that Reverend Gray's hand is up. Reverend Gray, you've got the chair.
Thank you very much.
Floor.
Nicole, it's always a pleasure seeing you and hearing you. I said at the last meeting, I have an abundance of respect for you. So thank you very much for what you do. I do have a specific question as it relates to access. And maybe I've missed something. Does the ordinance state that we need CJC training in order to gain access? Or is that a requirement of CJC?
So I believe that is a requirement of CJC. They require every person that comes in, vendor, and anyone to come in and do this training. So that part is a CJC requirement. The
Okay,
other training that you have is ordinance required.
So then my follow-up to that, as the chair of the corrections task force under Mayor Lyda Cruzen, we had access at that time to CJC. We had full access to everything. We had full access to the facility, and there was nothing mentioned at all regarding the necessity of training for accessibility. So then my follow-up question, is this requirement something that came with the new commissioner, or is this, and if so, when? And is it in writing somewhere? And so is this with the new commissioner? Is it in writing? When was it placed in writing? And where can we find that at? Because it did not exist with the former commissioner. And if it existed with the former commissioner, well, anyway, that commissioner's gone, that mayor's gone. Forget the previous ones, but I am very much interested to know, because it didn't apply then, but it applies now. I need to know, what was that process? Is it in writing? When did it occur? And
Yes,
I don't need to know now, but that's, unless you have that information now.
I probably have some of it, and then some of that is probably a Jennifer question. So thank you for that. That's a good question, Reverend Gray. And this was something that started with the new commissioner. And this was something that actually started pre the DFOB, because I can say that, and I don't know if it's in writing or when it was in place. That's something that's a question for Jennifer. But when everything shut down in 2020, and things started opening back up, there was concern about a lot of issues, safety issues, contraband being brought in and things like that. And so the commissioner put in place, because one of the first things, even when I got here, we were talking about opening up programming again, right? I actually went to CJC, spoke to the male dorm reps. I had another meeting with our female detainees as well, to talk about any issues or concerns and what their needs were. And so one of the things that was overwhelmingly brought up was they wanted programming back, right? I mean, nobody wants to just sit idle doing nothing all the time. And that was a problem. And so as we were talking about opening programming back up, this is when the discussion came up about the training, so that all the vendors had to go through this training, and they needed staff to be able to present the training. So this didn't just come up recently because we were having an issue with the DFOB. I just want to make that part clear. This was an issue that came up before this discussion ever came up. So, but as far as when it was implemented, if it's in writing, that I cannot answer, but we can certainly try to find out.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I think, I mean, I definitely wanted to chat more about what that training looked like and like how we can make this training easy for you all.
Thank you.
Do you have other questions, Reverend Gray, or is that?
No, that was it. I'm as you are, Chair, I'm anxiously awaiting an opportunity to have the commissioner join us. I'm more interested in the commissioner's presence at this point, only because we're talking about ordinance and understanding of ordinance and so forth. And as I said, this helps me in framing what I'm going to say in the new business. So thank you, Chair, very much.
All right.
Stop that smiling. I see you smiling. Stop. It's not controversial.
Okay. Other board members, before I offer my 2 cents, would anyone like the floor? Okay, then I'm up and I'll open it back up when I'm done. Okay, I have several questions. And I'm not sure that you will be able to answer them all, Nicole. They're not all necessarily questions for you, but since you're here, I'll pose them to you. If you can answer them, you can answer them. If not, we'll ask the right people. So in general, I have very little faith left in the city to do what we were asked to do here. The fact that the mayor's not here is not helping that faith. The fact that the commissioner's not here is not helping that faith either. We're talking a lot about how to get us access to the facility, but I still don't believe that we are going to have the access we need to provide oversight. You've said that this 16-hour training requirement is not something that has come like newly since related to the DFOB, but I have seen a marked like increase in escalation and obstruction since my last tour, which was the first time that a detained person spoke to me about the conditions there. It was immediately after that the commissioner sent an email saying that no more tours would be allowed. I think and you'll see that this speech it's not really a question as much as it is comments. I think that the idea that we would need paid city staff to chaperone us for tours where we're trying to provide oversight for a troubled city facility is inherently a very large problem with oversight. Almost all of the board members here have entered the facility without the 16-hour training. So I'm confused why at this point it's like a deal breaker, hard stop. We need this training to enter the facility again. I'm concerned about the discussion of, I think this was about the Police Oversight Board, but that they had a 4-hour training once every week for 12 weeks, totaling 48 hours of training, and that they couldn't do part of their job of oversight until that training was finished. I'm concerned about the amount of time that is going to keep passing before we can do anything that amounts to substantive change. And the fact that while all of this time is passing, hundreds of detained people are in the CJC, no one knows what's happening there. If they know, they can't speak about it. I mean, we're not being allowed to see it, which is very concerning. And the amount of pushback that we're getting from the city and from the commissioner to prevent us from oversight is incredibly concerning. I think before we develop our own unique and personal complaint form, it would be great to have access to the complaints that are already being made to the CJC. We have not seen those complaints yet, which is, just following this pattern of concerning behavior. A lot of the things in response to the letter were about your ability to help with cooperation between the DFOB, the commissioner, and the city councilor's office. I think there were a lot of promises of cooperation with no precedent of cooperation. We've tried many times to cooperate with the commissioner. We've invited her here. I've requested to meet with her several times, and I have heard nothing back and received no cooperation, no acts of good faith on her part. I think that it's a great idea that you and Matt are able to meet with the commissioner to try to plan out a more feasible training and things like that. But I would like to be part of those meetings so that I can advocate for the needs of other board members. And I think it's important to have someone in those meetings who is not employed and paid by the city. And the commissioner just refuses to meet with me, again, concerning. And you also mentioned that the city councilor's office will help with our orientation, such as sunshine law, et cetera. Like Matt has said, we've been asking for several of these orientation pieces to be done, and they haven't been. And it's been almost a year since the first time I attempted to access the facility, and nothing has really happened. And then referring back to our public statement, there were 3 things that we requested at the end of that. One was to compel the DOC. So this is things we asked of the mayor and or the director of public safety. The first was to compel the DOC to gather and produce complete information and respond to future requests within the 10-day time frame. We haven't heard any response that directly addresses that. The next is to ensure reliable and consistent DFOB access to speak privately with detainees regarding the conditions of their detention. We are going back and forth talking about a training, but I don't think we're anywhere close to ensuring reliable and consistent access. And the third was to receive the cooperation from the DOC commissioner that is contemplated by the ordinances, which allow Mike Milton and Barb Baker to continue to access the facility. That just goes back to general access and cooperation with Commissioner Clemens Abdullah. That just isn't happening. So I don't know that there's specific questions. I hope other board members can speak to this, but I generally have very little faith that anything is really moving in a positive direction. I think that a lot of barriers are being added to our work, barriers that include city involvement and cooperation with the commissioner, cooperation with the city councilor's office, et cetera, that we just haven't seen. And it's deeply concerning. And I can barely take that as time goes on, month after month, people are just in the CJC. Like they're just there. And
Thank you, Chair. If it's okay, is it okay if I?
yeah, that was kind of the end of it.
Okay. So, well, one, I want to just say, the mayor did have a conflict tonight, and I was coming already. I think Reverend Gray had asked me to come last time we were in a meeting together. So I was planning on coming today. The mayor knows that we've been working on some of these concerns recently. So just one, I want you to know, like, a lot of this sort of just came to my attention recently. And we have been trying to work on, on the concerns, but the mayor did have a conflict tonight, but she did say that she does plan on coming to a future meeting. So she definitely wants to continue to know when the meetings are, and she's going to try to make sure that she's available as well. But I think that she trusts hopes that we are starting to address those concerns and working in the right direction. I don't want you to give up faith. I don't want any of you to give up faith, because this is very important work. And if you don't know me, I'm very passionate about oversight, and I'm very passionate about making sure that this work gets done. And and I have concerns about people that are sitting at CJC, and I'm working on a lot of stuff outside of what you guys are working on right now to address things that are going on. So we're not sitting back with our hands tied, not doing anything. So I want you to know that. And the concerns of our citizens, concerns of our detainees are definitely concerns of mine, and our concerns of our office. And the mayor she does want, I mean, she signed this expansion. She wants this to work. She wants the ordinance, she wants this to move forward, and she wants you all to be able to get the work done. And so I will say, just don't lose faith. I'm sorry it's taking a lot longer than expected. And we're trying to work through the problems now. I know I have talked to Chief Coyle several times. I know Matt talks to Chief Coyle, and Matt and the commissioner are going to be meeting regularly to try to make sure that we're pushing this forward. But one thing I would say, so as far as the complaints are concerned, I think the only thing that's holding that up is the process. And Janice, you're correct. You should be, all of you, every board member should be part of the process. And so what is really important is making sure that you all sit together and write up a draft process. Right? Like, that's really, really important. And once you get that draft process together, I think Matt is very capable of being able to take your everyone's concerns back to Jennifer. If Chief Coyle and I, or all of us, have to get together to make sure that the process is agreed upon, the city council's office has their check and balance on it, I think that we're moving forward to get the complaints. I think, personally, I think that at least there should be an aggregate number. I think Matt has asked for that already, just an aggregate number of how many complaints there might be, because he needs to know this in order to work staff in the office, right? And so, but the process part is very important in order to get the complaints, because if you don't have the process written out, nobody knows what to follow. So I just want to make sure, that I say that, so because I don't know where you guys are. Maybe you guys already started working on that as well, but that's going to have to be done in order to make sure the complaint process is going smoothly, if that makes sense. And I do believe that you all will be able to have access, and that you will be able to speak to detainees. Again, sorry it's taken such a long time for you all to be able to get that done. And I think in the beginning, when the expansion of the ordinance was passed, there was this holdup in court, which really impeded on some of that. That I'm hoping now, that we're moving forward on both of the boards. And then I think as far as Mike and Barb, I know they both have programs that and I've known Barb Baker for many years with domestic violence work. She's great. I want her to be able to stay in that in that vein. So, but I think that's held up.
I just interrupt you for a second.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Pam, I think we're getting some kind of feedback possibly from your mic.
Oh, sorry, I just turned it on because I want to ask something when she's done, please.
Okay, yeah, I'll get to the other comments, but continue, Nicole.
Yeah, so I was just saying that their work is phenomenal. Their work is much needed in our community. But I think that's something that legal, that the city council's office might be working on. I'm not privy to that, but I think Mike and Barb offer great, valuable skills both on this board and the programs that they run. And so hopefully that gets addressed as well. And so I don't know if I was able to comment on everything, but I hope some of that helps.
I'm going to pass it off to Pam since she hasn't spoken yet. Pam, you've got the floor.
Yeah, I'm trying to get where you don't get feedback. So I appreciate the need for the process. In fact, I think when this started a year ago, I drafted a process and we circulated it. And this could have been done. And I'm getting very impatient with what feels like roadblocks. They may not be intentional roadblocks on other people's parts, but we need to make it really clear that we did not approach this adversarial. We are not amateurs. Many of us have many, many years of experience in government and social justice and doing investigations and consulting kind of work. And this doesn't feel like anything else I've ever done. I don't know why the commissioner has a problem. If we knew what her issue was, maybe we could address it, but she has to talk to us. And I don't care if she talks to the whole board, but she at least has to talk to Janice. We don't want to be adversarial. We don't want to be controversial. We don't want to be in constant conflict. We're busy people and we're volunteering for this. And our whole purpose for being here is to improve the facility. It's not to harass anybody. It's not to waste their time. It's not to get in their way. We can be an incredibly valuable tool. And I don't know why she doesn't recognize us as that. My 10 years as health director, I had an advisory committee. I relied on them to help me in the community, to help get my message out. I took their criticism. I made changes based on their recommendations. This just doesn't make sense to me. And we've got to get through this barrier. 48 hours of training is not even realistic. 16 hours of training, 2 full days is not realistic, and it's not necessary. We have a team of investigators. If they're trained and qualified, we're going to rely on them. We're not going to try to do their jobs, but we are going to lead and we are going to direct some investigations. You know, we're ready to go. I could do a medical investigation tomorrow if I wanted to and get it started and have a process and have it clear and have good oversight and good recommendations. But we're not allowed to do that. So it just needs to be clear that we're frustrated and we have good reason to be frustrated. We're trying to help. We have a mandate to do the things that we're trying to do. And we haven't been able to do them for almost a year. And I know everybody's worried about lawyers and lawsuits and who's going to sue who and how much it's all going to cost the city. Well, you know what? Do things right. And you don't have to worry about that. Be transparent. And you don't have to worry about that. Don't abuse people. And you don't have to worry about that. Don't disrespect people. And you don't have to worry about that. I'm tired of worrying about lawyers being sued. That's why there's a courthouse in every county and a lawyer on every corner. Let's move forward and do our mandate. And I hope that message gets conveyed to somebody. I'm done.
Pam, I've missed you so much.
Thank you, Pam.
It's so good to have you back. Really quickly, Ornitha, if you could mute when you're not speaking, we're just hearing like a little bit of background noise.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll pass it to Matt and then we'll go to Tom and then Reverend Gray. Matt, you got the floor.
Yeah, I was just going to note for the record, we passed policies and procedures for investigations, and we've passed policies and procedures for sharing complaints. Now there's legal recommendation because of the new ordinance we should reevaluate and readopt. So it's not like We just haven't done this. And so we're going through that process, but I just want to note that we have had that. So there hasn't been a legitimate objection in the past.
Thanks, Matt. That's very helpful too.
Thanks.
Has that been shared? Just a quick question. Has that been, so are you guys looking at it again now since the new
Yeah.
ordinance is passed? Is that where you are? Okay, just,
Yes.
okay, want to make sure. Okay. Thank you.
Tom, you've got the floor.
I think Reverend Gray had his hand up before me, so I'll let him go first. He'll probably touch base on a lot of the things I was thinking about.
I'm gonna, it's okay,
was-
Chair, however you wanna do it is fine. Thank you so much, Tom.
I was going to Tom first since you had spoken last, but we can go to Reverend Gray and then we'll go to Tom.
Thank you so much to both of you. I don't know, Chair, coming after Pam, I'm not sure how much more needs to be said. Because I think it's important, and Nicole, we understand that you're just a messenger. So, and plus I know your professionalism, so I know that you definitely know this is not personal towards you. But I think that all of the board members who have spoken have made it very clear our lack of confidence that the commissioner has acted in a way that has not produced obstruction. And so we're not overly confident, Nicole, and I think that the mayor needs to know this, that we're not overly confident when you say that we have to prepare documents, policies, procedures, etc., that have to be approved by the commissioner and or the city councilor, because in too many cases during our existence, we've received the most obstruction from both of those entities. And as Pam said, we never intended to be in an adversarial role and don't want to be, but we continue to seemingly get this pushback. And so, as the chair and as Pam and as others have said, I think that this is information that needs to be communicated directly to the mayor, because at the end of the day, the mayor has the final say. No matter what is recommended by the corrections commissioner and or what is recommended by the city attorney. And for many people on the board, these people were appointed by the mayor. And this board, in its the way we have been constructed, along with this, this office of public accountability, is a brainchild of the mayor. And so the reason, Nicole, that the mayor's name keeps coming up is that we believe, that I think that most of us believe at the end of the day, because this was her brainchild, because many people on the board were appointed by her, because this was a campaign commitment that she made, that it's important that she gets this information firsthand, and that she knows that the two entities, both of whom she has appointed, the Commissioner of Corrections and the city attorney, these are her appointments as well. And we want to make sure that she gets the information directly, so that we as a board and individual board members, as Pam indicated, would know if we're just wasting our time, or if this is something that the mayor actually wants to have happen, a oversight board who cares only for the welfare, the well-being, and the safety of not just the detainees, but the staff, be it correctional officers and administrative staff as well. And so, finally, I think you've heard, Nicole, that all of the board members who have spoken share 100% the concerns and issues and message that has been raised by our chairperson. And so I just wanted to share that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Vice Chair. Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Reverend Gray. You're very eloquent as always. So I was actually on the Ferguson Civilian Review Board, which is just like the Police Oversight Board for the City of St. Louis. And our board was to investigate the Ferguson police and investigate the complaints that were filed against the police. And in the year and a half that I was on the board, not one complaint was filed against the Ferguson Police Department. So that things are circumvented, and it just becomes a bureaucratic puppet. And I think, as Reverend Gray said, the mayor did make this part of her campaign. She made a determination on public that she was going to close the workhouse because of conditions there. And so, she has this platform of detention reform. But as I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Harry Truman said the buck stops here. It's the mayor. If the mayor is the boss, if the mayor is over the director of public safety, if the mayor is over the commissioner, then there's no argument. There's no disagreement. There is just this bureaucratic level down that needs to take place. And I don't understand why we couldn't take 2 hours in which we had all stakeholders sitting in a room, and the mayor basically comes out and says, this is your responsibility and this is your responsibility. If the oversight board says they're coming to visit, they're coming to visit. If they want to inspect certain levels of the detention facility, they have access to it. We were very polite in the very beginning, cordial, trying to work with them. And what we got was, oh, let me show you a floor that's being worked on that's not being used right now. And then we actually have one of our members physically handled and escorted through the facility. I think that would be almost on a level of assault. So there are problems already. There's a lot of problems. And, if this board goes, that's going to be another year of trying to find another group of people to be on the board, another year and a half of going through the bureaucratic thing. And perhaps the mayor won't even be going into a third term. She may want to, she may not want to, but publicly it's going to show on her that she started a program, an initiation of having an oversight board that collapsed on her. And that's not going to look very favorably. So you've been hearing from all of us, and we are dedicating our time voluntarily. You are spread all over the place, and so you know what it's like. But I think that maybe perhaps the mayor, maybe you, maybe the director of public safety need to go in and actually do your own interview with the inmates that are there and find out directly without any kind of pressure. But this is silly. This is nonsense. And if you think that, that we can do something, well, we can. We're here for you. We're here to do this. We want to do this, but it's ridiculous that we have to sit here and be played with as a political tool between who has what powers when the mayor has the ultimate power. So this is one of the reasons why I graciously asked Reverend Gray to go before me so I can, pause my passion a little. You can call it something else, but I don't understand all this. And so it needs to go to the mayor. The mayor needs to make a decision. She either wants this done or not. And if she wants it done, it's time to sit down and tell the commissioner, no more of this BS. It's time for the director of public safety to sit down with the commissioner and say, no more of this, and get us the training that we need, tell us what we need to do, and then let's go ahead and go on. Because we're already over a year. And we've done absolutely nothing except devoted our time and tried to make a difference. And I'll rest it there.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Is it okay if I say something,
Yeah,
Chair?
you will.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mrs. Walker. Thank you so much, Reverend Gray. Thank you so much, Mr. Lawson, for all of that. Very appreciated. I understand your frustration. I understand your concerns. I understand volunteering and not seeing much being done yet. I will say on behalf of the mayor, yes, this was something she wanted very much so. And she does stand behind that. She wants the oversight board to be operational and functional. And that is why she's making sure that myself, Chief Coyle, Director Brumman, and Commissioner are all talking and understanding the concerns and the gaps so that we can get it addressed, so that we can get you this training, so you can get access, so you can get the complaints that you need to be functional. And so she very much wants that to happen. And I apologize once again, it's taken so long to get to this point. And Mr. Lawson, I don't know if you know my background, but I was hired as the consent decree coordinator for the city of Ferguson. And I know you all didn't get any complaints with the Civilian Review Board. And I will say the first complaint they got was 2 weeks after I got there. And I made sure that that Civilian Review Board was up and running and functional, and they were given everything they needed in order to start hearing complaints, have all the evidence and everything that they needed to proceed. And so, you know, I want to see the same thing happen with our city civilian oversight board. That's been a passion of mine for a long time. So I hear all of you and your frustrations, and I speak to oversight boards all across our nation. And there is always frustration by the obstacles that we have to go through in order to get this work done. So I just want to say again, hang in there. We are definitely working on it. We hope and that we can overcome some of these, you know, concerns very, very soon. And I also just wanted to say something, Reverend Gray, about, I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. So we're not saying that the commissioner has to approve anything. I just want to make sure in the ordinance, when we're in section 7, the language says that the DFOB, in consultation with the commissioner and the city councilor, shall develop and implement a system for receiving, processing, and reviewing complaints, which process shall include the creation of a complaint form, blah, blah, blah. And then, and that was section A. And then down in section C, under case management, it says the DFOB, in consultation with the commissioner and city council's office, shall adopt or develop a case management system for complaints and matters that are the subject of criminal accountability and professional standards, classifying tools, blah, blah, blah. So I just want to make sure when I said that, I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I was saying, like that like the commissioner has to approve anything. We're saying, per the language of the ordinance, that you all work in consultation with the commissioner and with the city council's office to do these 2 buckets, if that makes sense. And there's no way that it can be done without consulting them, because there's 2 sides that play into this, right? It's your side, and it's the how do you receive and review the complaints back and forth. So like there has to be these conversations. And again, I understand, I hear everyone today saying there hasn't been really great communication, but I know that Mr. Brumman and Commissioner Abdullah Clemens are now meeting weekly. And so, and if there's any problems with these 2 buckets being able to consult together, we're happy to step in again. And the mayor, I will make sure that I let her know the concerns that we talked about tonight, but I think she was hopeful that since Mr. Brumman, myself, Chief Coyle, and Jennifer were collaborating and having conversations now, that we would be able to push these initiatives forward, because she hired all of us for a reason. And so I'm hoping that we can, and I'm hoping that we can do it in a quicker manner than what's happened so far, if that helps.
I appreciate it. Chair, I just can't, because I just want to respond real quick, only because it's referenced to me. And Nicole, I do understand, and I've read the ordinance, and I agree with you. It's very clear that it says consultation. And so maybe I misheard, as we were talking about, maybe I misheard the word involvement and approval. Maybe I misheard. So I'm glad you reiterated the ordinance where it indicates very clearly collaboration. My problem is still going to be in the interpretation of that language. I want to put the city council on notice. or anybody else, that we understand what consultation means. As Pam said, a lot of us have been involved in this work a long time. And so we understand we don't want, based upon what we have experienced thus far, we don't want moving forward anybody to think that we don't understand the ordinance, that we don't understand how the ordinance has been interpreted. And finally, Chair, that when it comes to the interpretation of the ordinance, where it says in consultation, we don't want any of the other entities to think that that means approval. And so I'm glad that you have reread the ordinance to us for clarification. And I appreciate that, Nicole, so that everybody that's involved, all the parties that you mentioned, understand that we've read it too. And consultation does not mean approval. So thank you very much for reiterating that.
Thanks, Reverend Gray. I think we're gonna keep moving with the meeting, but I do want to offer, actually, Barb Baker, I saw you had your hand up, but then you put it down. Is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, I just like to say, thank Nicole for being here. And also say that I agree with Tom and Reverend Gray. But I also want to point out, when they do get things situated and we are able to go into the jail, that we're not just able to see cherry pick people, that we be able to see, you know, be able to go to the dorms and talk to randomly people individually, not cherry pick people. That's going to tell us everything is fine.
Thanks, Barb. I'll just offer a final word. I've still been thinking about Matt's presentation and the 4 things he broke procedural justice down to: voice, fairness, respect, and caring. And I've been thinking about it from the perspective of just residents of St. Louis, and this process. Do they have a voice, the ability to explain themselves, to communicate? No. Is there fairness, objective decision-making? I would also say no. And when I'm thinking of that, I'm thinking of the idea that Matt and Nicole and the commissioner and the director of public safety meeting is a helpful response to the way things have been going, I don't think is appropriate. I think that I'm specifically not included in those meetings. It's great that Matt and the commissioner are going to meet weekly. The last time Matt and the commissioner met, I tried to join that meeting and I was intentionally kept out of that meeting by the commissioner. Anyways, moving to the third thing, respect. Are the people of St. Louis treated with dignity and respect? I would also say, obvious by this process, no. And does the city show that they care about people's well-being, needs, and concerns? I would also say no. I think that the fact that this detention facility oversight board is a product of the community's call for better conditions for some of the city residents that are at the margins of the city, in the jail where they don't have access to the public, where we know that they're being abused, that it has come from a call to close the workhouse, that it has come after 6 people have lost their lives in this facility. I do not see from the city the idea that people's quality of life is the utmost concern. I have seen a concern for procedure and for red tape and honestly a bunch of other nonsense. But it's like, it's very difficult for me to understand how this is still going on like this. I don't believe that things are going to change. And I keep thinking of the 6 people that died while in custody at the CJC and what they might think of what we're doing here. And I just think it's an incredible embarrassment to the city of St. Louis. But I will move on. Thank you, Nicole, for coming. We're gonna keep going with the agenda items, and hopefully I can say some of those things again to the mayor. Next on the agenda is an update on DOC training. Matt, I'm not sure. Oh, this was an update on the 16-hour training that some of us went to. I wasn't one of those people, but I believe Matt went. Hillary, did you go? Yes, Hillary went. Was there someone else? Barb, maybe? No, just Matt and Hillary.
And
Yeah,
then
I was scheduled to
three of
go,
our
Chair, but I
investigators.
apologize. I was scheduled to go, but I had a work commitment, plus I got sick that week and didn't want to take my germs anywhere around Matt.
Okay, so Matt, Hillary, and 3 of our investigators.
Yes. So I'll just give a quick summary and then we can kind of move on. So the first 8 hours, the first day was entirely on the Prison Rape Elimination Act, 8 hours, which I think the kind of consensus was, I think you could do a 5 minutes on here's the no tolerance policy and why, and that's all we needed. We originally thought we were going to have it at the CJC, but the Commissioner of Corrections moved it to our office. So it was just us in the training. The second day, I have all the notes that I took.
Sorry, Matt. It was just who in the office? Who in the training?
Just the 6 of us or 5 of us.
So no Department of Corrections staff?
Just the one giving the instruction.
All right, I'll let you finish.
And then the second day was security process and procedure, which is a little bit more on point. I don't think it's at the level that would be, we could just say, give this specific part to the board. But I'm hoping with my discussions with the commissioner, we can come up with an hour, I think would be enough to cover the security process and procedures, whether it's with their instructor or, we have staff that have spent years over at the corrections that can do it as well. Hillary, I don't know if you wanted to add anything or.
We pretty much covered it. I would agree. A lot of the information that we probably could take moving forward that will benefit us. So that pretty much covered everything. And hopefully you guys will get other information that'll be more beneficial in the future.
Thank you so much, Hillary, for going to that. I did not expect any board members to go. I know it's a huge inconvenience and you have a day job. So thank you.
Happy to be able to go, so it's no problem. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, well, it sounds like that's that. I mean, are there any questions on that or from the board members, or should we just move on? Reverend Gray, you might be on mute.
Yeah, my question is, I think that one of the things, and maybe Matt can answer this, is that we said that based upon that 16-hour training, that the staff would be able to, I guess, pull something together to bring back to the board so that now that we don't have to do the 16 hours, that they can do a synopsis.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah. Whew. Been a long day. Or summary of that to bring back, to have that included in our training. I don't know, Matt, was that part of the rationale behind that? Or something that was supposed to be a takeaway from the 16-hour training that your folk would put
Yeah,
something?
that could be one of the results of this, is that we could just give a summary of the 16 hours. We could do that. I just want to talk to the commissioner first. Afterwards and see if we can come to an agreement.
Okay.
We don't need for approval for the orientation, but yeah, just we'll see what happens.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matt.
Any other questions for the training attendees? Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is anti-retaliation policy. So I put this one on the agenda, and my idea here is that I've been thinking about the man that spoke to me at my last tour and how, well, one, there's no evidence that any of his concerns have been addressed, but two, since I've not been able to tour since, and I don't know when the next person will be able to tour, and we don't get substantive information updates from the commissioner, there's no way for me to know that he was not retaliated against for speaking to me. And there's no way currently for us to protect people who report to us from being retaliated against, whether that's people who are detained or staff there. I've had interactions with staff there where I speak to them in passing, and I won't say this person's name, obviously, but I was speaking to a staff member at the facility, and another staff member came out to just kind of glare at them. And the staff member I was speaking to said they don't want me talking to you. And I apologized to that staff member, and she was like trying to get me to speak quieter when I was apologizing. But this just to say that this only works if people feel like they can say what injustices are going on and that they won't be retaliated against when they're detained there, and that they won't be retaliated against if they work there. So my idea is just to get thoughts from board members on how to begin to address something like that, if we can make some kind of anti-retaliation policy. I was thinking somewhat similar to kind of like a whistleblower type policy. Just if there are any thoughts on that. I'm wondering if the police oversight board has something like that, but I know that that's different, a little bit different, since you could complain about a police officer, but you're not in jail. Matt, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I assigned one of our staff members to kind of do a review of current policies at DOC and within the city, just to see if anything would apply. And hopefully by next meeting, we'll have something to report back as part of this. We may still, doesn't
Right.
preclude our own policy, but just to kind of, okay, what currently exists.
Okay, yeah, we'll probably have to make it more specific, and also that's definitely going to be one that we're going to need cooperation from the commissioner on. So we'll just try to, yeah, we'll keep that in mind and try to work something out there. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts on this?
No, Chair, I'm glad my thumb went down. I was gonna ask the same question to Matt. Would a whistleblower's policy suffice? I'm sure it does with staff, particularly who are civil service, but would that same whistleblower's policy apply to detainees? Or is that what you're asking? Or Chair, are you just asking for, when you talk about retaliation, are you simply talking about correctional officers and administrative staff, or are you also talking about detainees who might? So I just maybe I'm asking for clarification. Maybe mine is a clarification question.
Yeah, that's a great point. I had not thought about retaliation that might come from other people who are detained. We should probably work all of that in. And I think that just speaks to, we'll have to take whatever is available and tailor it to this specific purpose. But I was primarily thinking of corrections officers, since that's kind of, I would say, the people with the most power and direct access to someone. Yeah, I think, but even more than this policy being created in general, I would like to speak to that man again. I can't imagine how that's going to happen. But
Just as
Yeah.
a correction, Chair,
Mhm.
when you say whistleblower, you're talking about, because you mentioned corrections officers, so I just want to make sure we're clear. Because
Mhm.
we're talking about correctional officers and staff. Because,
Yes,
yeah, because you got administrative staff as well,
yes, yeah.
who sometimes I found in the past are a lot more forthcoming because they're not correctional officers and have somewhat of a buffer. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood that you were talking about both. Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. I've found that people recently released. Actually, yeah, we're probably going to need a whistleblower or anti-retaliation policy for pretty much anyone who comes into contact with us, because people who are recently released um, might be very forthcoming about the conditions inside. But I mean, with kind of the revolving door of the CJC, they might later be detained there and then be at higher risk. It's kind of a tricky situation, but I would want anyone who reports to us to be protected. Detain people, formally detain people, COs, staff. Oh, and then also some police officers, because I know that sometimes the security staff, the person who mans the security station, is not under the DOC. They're with the police. But we can work on that.
Chairman, I don't know if you're aware of ordinance 70847. That's the city of St. Louis whistleblower law. And I think you probably have upcoming training coming up, and I would ask Commissioner Drummond, and he's probably developing about personnel and civil service rules, and perhaps that's all a part of that. So, but if anybody would like a copy of that to see if that addresses any of what you're talking about, it's on the city website.
Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at that. I think anything will need to be tailored, but yeah, that'll definitely be helpful. Any other comments on this? Otherwise, we'll move to new business. All right, moving to new business. Reverend Gray, would you like to raise something?
Yes, and thank you again, Chair, for indulging me and for that smile. I do want to bring back, in light of everything that has taken place, Chair, I would like, through you, to ask Commissioner Brown to begin to look at what process would we have to undertake in order to secure an independent legal counsel. I think that we're at that stage where at least we need to know that if we need independent legal counsel as a board, what's the process? And I appreciate everything that Barbara has done. She's been wonderful, extremely professional, transparent, non-biased. But unfortunately, as we move forward, as I talk about the board and the level of confidence that should be there, but is not there overall, I would like to ask our commissioner, through you, to at least find out what would be the process for this board in securing our own independent legal counsel. I don't know if I need a motion or it just needs to be a request. I don't know, Chair. I'll leave that to your wisdom to determine how to process what I just
Yeah.
said.
Thanks for bringing that up. I'm not sure if you were on this meeting, but we talked, I believe Matt or someone said, describe the process in general, which was that we would need to request special counsel, make a request for special counsel to the office of the city. Sorry?
Yeah, to the city councilor.
Yeah, to the city councilor, and then the city councilor would have the discretion whether to grant that request or not, and then would have the discretion to choose who that independent counsel would be. So if that is the case, then I believe your motion would be to, well, I hope you'd heard that already, one. And then I believe your motion would be to move that we make a formal request for special counsel to the city council.
Just so I'm clear, before I make that motion,
Mhm.
that is the process that you just articulated, is that a process that is binding by the ordinance? Are we bound by the ordinance to follow that process?
I
I
believe
so.
There is an ordinance process. I'm looking for it. I don't know. I'm trying to
I'm
use
looking at
another
it
device.
right
and look.
now.
Could you read it perhaps?
Yeah, so there's a city ordinance regarding special counsel that says the city councilor may employ special counsel to represent the city in public utility, interstate commerce proceedings, patent cases, tax cases, and in all other matters requiring the services of special counsel.
That's not, I mean, the one that's in one of your two
Oh, right.
ordinances.
So that was City Code 3.10.050. Section 8H of the last ordinance, 71647, says, request to the city councilor on majority vote of the DFOB for good cause shown may request that the city councilor provide, and the city councilor may in their sole discretion and subject to the requirements of the city code I just read, retain special counsel to advise the DFOB. And then I'm skipping, the decision to grant such request and selection of special counsel is exclusively vested in the sound discretion of the city councilor. And if they deny it, they have to provide the rationale in writing.
Is there an appeal process to that, Matt? If we don't agree?
Not contained in this ordinance.
Okay. So, Chair,
Mhm.
I stand by my statement, but I do understand that there is a process that does exist per the ordinance that governs this oversight board. And so I will hold my thoughts in abeyance. And then I'll talk to you about it, because I think that there's something that has to be done, but we're not political. We're not a political entity. And I'm hoping that, I tell you what I would like, Chair, in thinking about this. Could you invite Alderwoman Clark Hubbard back to is that a tail back there?
That's my kitten Lola.
I'm sorry. Oh, that threw me off. Could we invite Alderwoman Clark Hubbard back to discuss recommended amendments to the ordinance?
That sounds great.
Okay, so that's my new business. All right, I'm through with that.
Matt, I officially ask you to ask Alderwoman Clark Hubbard to reappear in the meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, as you were saying that, Reverend Gray, I was thinking that just in general, it would be great if an ordinance that pertains to us, while it was being created, we were consulted before it was, I don't know, proposed or passed or whatever. Just as like a general practice, that would be cool if the city did that. But yeah, sounds good. We'll we'll have her join.
Okay, thank you.
I also
But-
wanted to just, I guess, state that if there was an appeal process or an explanation regarding whether or not the request for special counsel was granted, I'm pretty sure that would be another case of like confidential legal advice. Just a thought. Okay, so I did think of another new business item. I'm thinking for the rest of, how many board members do we have left here? Myself, Tom, Barb, Pam, Hillary, Reverend Gray, Ornitha. Great. I know that the theoretical idea of this board is that after every year, we make recommendations on how to improve the facility. Despite not having much access to the facility / due to our lack of access to the facility, I am still interested in making recommendations to the mayor and to the director of public safety based on what we have seen so far and based on our experiences so far, and making those recommendations relatively soon in the next few months or so or something like that. I'd love to hear board members' thoughts on that. So I'll open it up.
Can I just add one thing quick?
Yeah.
So the ordinance contemplates two reports. The first is a work plan that says, here's how we'd like to do basically the oversight. And then the report annually after that is, this is how it's going. So
So what's the work plan supposed to be? Just a collection of our procedures,
yeah, it
or
means the written plans for programs, initiatives, projects, and ongoing tasks in the oncoming year. It's kind of like kind of setting the goals for the board and what they'd like to see accomplished.
I see. That kind of seems like unimaginable based on how things have gone in terms of what programs to put in place and things like that. But I guess we'll open it up to the board. Thoughts about the work plan idea that, well, I guess it's not an idea. The work plan that Mike, or sorry, that Matt just shared, and also my idea about making recommendations. And I will say that I guess it doesn't have to be the recommendations that are specifically referred to in the ordinance, but I'm generally interested in making, I think it's time for us to make recommendations, big picture recommendations about what to do about this facility. And I'd love to hear board members' thoughts on that idea.
I support doing an annual report, even if it won't say a whole lot because of the obstruction that we've experienced over the last year. I'm just really at a loss. I think, Chair, that I need to give that some thought. I think that because the ordinance calls for a report, I think that we're obliged to give it. I wouldn't like it to be said that there was something that we were obligated to do that we could have done and didn't do. And so I just like a little bit more time to give thought. Matt might be in a better position as the commissioner to maybe do a template or an outline of what that report might look like, and then the board members may have an opportunity to receive that and then fill in the blank where they feel comfortable enough, with filling in the blank. That's just a suggestion.
Thank you. And I want to clarify that I don't mean to suggest that we shouldn't do the work plan and then a year from the work plan do the formal recommendation as described by the ordinance. I think we should definitely do that. We should also, now being reminded of the work plan, we should get started on that. I think that those two are pieces that will be subject to the same that those two will be things that like these other procedures are going to take time. I'm also suggesting that separately, just as we came up with a public statement, just as we've, yeah, I guess that's the main one. Just as we've come up with a public statement, just as we're at any time able to send a letter to the mayor, making recommendations or something like that, that it might be time for us to, I don't know, extend another hand, compile our thoughts more concisely or something. So yes, thank you for your comments, Vice Chair. Anyone else have their thoughts? No thoughts, really?
I think people are tired now, Chair.
I think so.
I think that you have just taken all the energy from us.
Yeah.
Or it might have been that cat.
Oh no, she only supplies energy.
Okay, all
She
right.
uses it. Okay, well, we can move to Hillary. I don't know, maybe I'm just grasping at straws, but your video just came on and I was thinking maybe you want to say something.
No, I was having technical difficulties, so I just was making sure
Okay.
because my audio was going in and out. So yeah, no, you're
Okay.
fine.
I do see a hand from Tom. Hopefully you want to say something.
Yeah, I really like what Reverend Gray said, that we are a committee, we have obligations, and that would be the professional side of us. Me, for the other hand, would like to deliberate about that. I think I need to sleep on it because at this point, I don't feel like, first of all, I don't think it's going to be heard. Second of all, I don't want to spin my wheels on something that's not going to go anywhere. If we're still doing the training, if we're still doing all this bureaucratic stuff, then I feel like technically that our obligations haven't started yet because we haven't been given the empowerment to do anything yet. And if we wanted to submit something saying at this point, the board feels that it's going through the process of being certified, trained, and that upon completion, we'll submit or we'll begin our duties and responsibilities, that which will create a report then. I like the idea of doing it because we should, but at the same time, I feel like a kind of a hypocrite. I feel like we're doing all the work and nothing's being acknowledged, nothing's being even accepted. So I feel like a kid with extra credit that's not going to get anything for it. So, that's it.
That's a hopeful perspective, Tom. I hadn't thought of that. It is a
Oh,
lift.
that's good.
All of this is a lift.
I agree with Tom, Chair.
I think, how to phrase this?
Oh,
What I have in mind, and I want to state that these are just my personal thought process and not a reflection of the board members' opinions. But I think that with everything that's happened at the CJC, I think the lift should be on the CJC. I think that, let's say in a year's time or whatever it is, we should see something, some kind of improvement, some kind of data to suggest that the CJC is a needed and beneficial thing to the city of St. Louis. Something to justify its existence. Otherwise, I don't believe it should exist. And when I'm thinking of recommendations, I'm thinking of it in those terms, that in the next year, we need to see XYZ. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense that this just continues in the city. And that's just how I've been thinking of things. I think that, yeah, after all of the horrible things that have happened there, I just think that the people of St. Louis deserve to see something produced, some kind of data, some kind of argument that this benefits the city in any way, or that this is needed. Otherwise, I think that the harm that is done there is not justified. But that's pretty much my thoughts on that. So the work plan, I do think we should get started on that. I think it might be good for that to be something that's like drafted in a committee and then brought to the board. We'll like circulate it and brought for approval or something. Trying to think of who could handle that. I believe the Reverend Gray, you're on the public meeting committee, correct?
Yes, and I was going to mention, and I'm sorry that we haven't met yet, but I know Miss Hillary has been trying to get a meeting scheduled. So that is something that we're going to follow up on, Chair.
Okay.
But to answer your simple question, I ducked my head when you said that.
I was thinking it would be great if that committee could draft something, perhaps, since it's already created. And
Ms. Hillary, what I will yield to my colleagues on that subcommittee to include Matt, because I think Matt is the person staffing that committee or someone from his office. Ms. Hillary, what are your thoughts? Is that something that we can meet and see what we can pull together, particularly with Matt's assistance?
Absolutely. Like I said before, whatever date and time, just let me know.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, we'll be
And who was the
glad to help.
third person, Chair? Who was the third person on that?
Ornitha, I believe.
Arnitha. I think it was Miss Arnitha. You're right. Okay, so I'll reach out, Miss Hillary, to you and Matt tomorrow, and we'll reach out to Miss Arnitha and try to at least get together, at least for a half hour or so, to kind of put our heads together to see what this might look like. Chair, I ducked my head, but I guess my head is too so big that I couldn't duck it far enough, huh?
Well, Reverend, you're the easiest, so we waiting on you.
Miss Hillary, wait a minute, that wasn't good.
No, I'm just joking. No, seriously though. I'm totally, and I know we're all busy, but that 30 minutes, we can definitely do that sometime soon, sooner than later.
All right,
Okay.
I'll reach out. Well, I'll reach out tomorrow afternoon and
Okay.
see what. All right.
Sounds
Thank
good. I will also be working with the committee on that.
Oh, yes, because you're ex officio on every committee, Chair. So yes, thank you very
Right.
much.
I do remember you saying that before. I will be on a silent retreat this Thursday through Sunday with no electronics, so
Okay.
you won't be able to reach me then. But otherwise, I'm down to help out. I know it's been like 2 hours, over 2 hours, so we're gonna wrap this up. We'll have a section for public comment, and then we'll schedule the next meeting and motion to adjourn. So opening it up to public comment for any members of the public here. I'm not sure if there are any other than Fox, but you have 3 minutes to make your comment. If it's like a question, we'll do our best to answer it, that kind of thing. If you could turn your camera on and come off mute or raise your hand, then we'll know to call on you. So we'll open it up for public comment right now. I'll wait a little bit. We might just not have public comment.
I don't see anybody from the public
Okay.
on the call
Okay.
or on the meeting.
I wasn't sure if the Fox one was gonna do something, but okay, so we'll move on to scheduling the next meeting.
Just the third Monday of June is the Juneteenth city holiday. So I don't know if the board still wants to meet on the 19th.
No,
Wants to move it back to the 26th or the 20th, that Tuesday.
okay,
You know, the fourth Monday, I have not, I am not a member, but you know that I
Right.
have the Historic Preservation Board on the fourth Monday of every month.
Tom,
Is there a problem with doing it on the second Monday of June?
I'm out of town for training, but we could have staff be part of it.
What about the first Monday in June?
The COB's meeting.
and it's, oh, never mind.
I'm
Okay,
just
is-
thinking, Chair, that, with everything that I know with Nicole going back to her colleagues and the commissioner and the mayor's office with what has been stated tonight,
Mhm.
I think that it is incumbent upon us to make ourselves available if we are asking them to respond to all of the very critical and crucial questions and concerns that has been raised. And I am concerned that if we push our next meeting off a month from now, that does not indicate urgency. If Matt is okay with having someone from the staff available on the 12th, if he's comfortable with that, Chair, I think we should be comfortable. It gives us, I mean, that's still a month. That's still 4 weeks, or at least, 1, 2, that's still 4 weeks. That's a long time.
So it sounds like, well, if I'll propose this, if enough board members are available for both the 5th and the 12th, possibly the 26th, I'd like to give a couple of options and hope that one of them, the mayor, will be available. So we can give her several options. And if there's no conflicts on one of them, then we can have her there and also give the commissioner several options.
I think for clarity, Chair, I think Matt said the 5th is not doable because it's a COB meeting on the 5th. Yeah.
What does that mean? Does that mean that Matt couldn't do it, or like
Our staff, I mean, yeah, we'll make it work. If you guys want to make it on the 5th, we'll make it work.
Whatever you decide, Chair, I'm good. If 5th
Yeah,
or the 12th, either way, I'm good. Okay.
My attendance will be absent for the month of June. I'll be out of the country.
okay? Are you going anywhere fun?
I get to say,
Costa-
I'm going with Tom. Tom, send
I think
me
we
the
should have the
invite,
meeting
Tom.
in Costa Rica.
Oh,
Ooh.
Jesus. That works.
You speak
Even
Spanish,
Barbara
Tom?
said yes to that.
I bet I could get us a group discount.
Okay, I am available the 5th and the 12th.
I'm available the 5th and the 12th. Let me just.
All Mondays in June, actually.
I'm available the 5th and the 12th.
Nice. Hillary, Ornitha,
Either one works for me.
All right.
Miss Ornitha Lewis Falls.
Yeah. And Pam's not on either. She's not on. I can text her.
Matt, Ornitha might be having trouble coming off mute. You might have both hit it because it just went on and off.
Yeah.
As you're doing that, Chair, I want to say, yes, it was a long meeting, but it was a good meeting. So thank you very much, and thank everybody. This was a good meeting. A lot was discussed. I would like to believe that it was a productive meeting, and I'd like to believe that this meeting is going to bear some fruit.
I like your hope.
Well, I am a preacher.
Okay.
I'm stuck with faith, hope, and love.
Or Nathan, you're off mute now. Are you
Okay.
available?
Yeah, I'm available for the 5th or the 12th. Just send me a reminder. You know, I'm old.
Okay, awesome. Matt, if you could invite the alderwoman, the commissioner, and the mayor, we'll offer them the 5th and the 12th, and if they could let us know their availability. Then if you could let me know, like, what are those answers for those three, then I will let you know which date we're meeting. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, we'll ask them right away
Cool.
for the 5th or 12th.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
If I could say, Chairman, too, it was interesting when you put your request in the public meeting committee. If you go to the newest ordinance and look at section 4A7, it kind of presupposes that you're getting training on these corrections, policies, and procedures. And it says that the division can make recommendations about those in consultation with the board and the public. So it kind of, if you look at that section, it kind of like everything like meets in the middle of that and like a big Venn diagram. So it might be good to review that.
I didn't understand that. What was that referring to?
The section 4A7 talks about you made a request that you wanted to make recommendations regarding corrections, policies, and procedures. Did I note that correctly?
No, I wasn't really talking about policies and procedures. It was more of like a big issue. City structure, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I'm not reading that, but that was one of the new duties in the new ordinance about for the division. And
Okay.
it said that the division would do that in consultation with the DFOB, and that the DFOB would consult with the public. And I thought that was interesting that you placed that in the committee that goes, to do that. So, kind of all flowed, the corrections training, the take a look at it in consultation, give that to the commissioner, and then loop the public, and it kind of all fell into that public committee.
Okay, sounds good.
I thought rather neatly.
Okay, thank you. Unless there's anything else, then
Pam, I just heard back from Pam Chair. She is not available on the 5th, but she is available on the 12th.
okay, sounds good. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
We'll still propose both to those three. But that's good to know. Unless there's anything else, I'd love to hear a motion to adjourn.
Oh, come off of mute, Grace. So move. I moved and we adjourned.
We have a second?
I second it.
Okay,
Tom,
we
I'm
will-
going on vacation. Would you send me information?
7:28.
We'll all vote at the same time. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, we'll see you guys soon.
I've never seen a motion to adjourn fail.
I'm glad to
Bye-bye.
hear.
Have a nice week, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you too. Bye.